This is Kal Kat, the Kal Kat's directing an update to the Chimera channel. Yes, we did one Starship Locations Legacy episode dedicated to my mother. She passed away last Monday, so yeah, I guess the next one would be again. I had done some Transformer stories, and although the funerals and services haven't happened yet, I've done some stories in dedicated to her as well as a Transformer character, Mega Mom. And I thought I should do some more Star Trek post that. Yeah, I don't have a script yet, but as you know, Kal Kat's prolific script writing techniques are. I'm not saying we need another series in the Legacy universe or a trilogy, but another movie would be nice before mid-May. So we'll come up with something, and it'll be awesome. Yeah. So as you saw from that little teaser there, the bridge set of the refit Chimera or any other spaceship you want to use has been rebuilt, and on a very low budget, a lower budget than what we did on the rest of the sets in the OG movie Legacy. We spent less than that on these two sets built from Home Depot boxes and dollar store trinkets. We won't say how much, but it was less. It was much less. So yeah, I constructed a bridge, and with the leftovers, constructed the other guy, the bad guy / other bridge, rebuilding the two bridge sets that we initially had years ago, for years, which can be used in other things like Transformers and Adventures and things like that, because the Transformers are currently about the same size as the Star Trek figures, or 5-6 inches. They're not any bigger than that, so really it's kind of weird. They've shrunk in scale. Some of them back to the OG size, but some of them even smaller, which is kind of nuts. So we have the Playmates figures and stuff. I do own some of the reissue Playmates. I didn't use them yet, the newer ones. But I'm not sure that I want to do a Discovery story, even though I have a Saru and a Berman. And I know that Discovery has just started, and they are currently this season in season 5 doing the Planet of the Fallen Ones story. Obviously, the creation of humans, ancient aliens. There's an alien and his girlfriend in it and stuff. It's a slightly different. They mixed the plot around a little bit, but it's Planet of the Fallen Ones. It's the Vita Cola Vito story. That's what they're doing. And I know it's from The Chase as well, but I was also thinking of The Chase when I did mine. So the same episode, and the blogs. Yeah, and even have the bloggy sort of thing going back and forth. Yeah. Of course, elements of that also ended up in Godzilla X Kong with an Aussie sort of character that acts goofy, like Vita Cola does in the story. I'm not saying that's what this needs to be if you do another one, but we have bridge sets, and I think the easiest thing to do first is because we always film bridge scenes before you film other scenes, is to create a story where they have to be on the bridge for a little bit of it, just enough to see everything and get acquainted with it, and the other bridge as well, and then go into post and then go on beyond that and do all the other stuff, planet stuff and all that. But yeah, I don't have a story where it's notes, because that's really hard to follow. Just notes and make it be anything. I'm thinking not a series, that's too long. Take too long to do that. Another movie in the Legacy timeline. But but not further ahead like the Transformer one, because then you had to go further ahead still, and then you had to sort of retcon that one and say like, oh, they really weren't in 2032 and they really weren't in 2038. It was the alien gods were testing them, and it was all like a Q kind of thing. They weren't really in the future. They were doing that future imperfect thing, basically. They go back. It's really the current timeline. We're not going to do that with the Star Trek story. That would be silly. Painted ourselves into a corner, though, at the end of last episode of the original the Chimera series, by having there be a scene set on a museum, Starfleet museum thing, where Adira Tall was talking about from Discovery. There's a brief scene at the very end, where it's hundreds of years later, and she's talking about the Chimera and the Chimera crew and how they served, what they did after the Chimera crew. And I suppose you can get around that by kind of doing what the Transformers one did and saying that's a separate timeline. Yeah, it's just a different timeline. Those events may not have happened. They're not set in stone. So yeah, I mean, you don't need to be adhere to exactly. Okay, we need to have Crass be the captain of the Chimera so she can do this thing in the future. It's kind of like, silly Godzilla X Kong movie where they're like where they found the ancient artifacts and they read them and they told them what to do in the next scene in the present thousands of years later. You don't need to do something like that because that doesn't make sense. Why don't you just have a swashbuckling space adventure? They go to a planet, they explore, and they do some stuff, and it's a fun Star Trek story. Unlike, the first Abrams movie was all right, but yeah, the Wrath of Khan one was not necessary. They were doing that over and over and over again, even with really technically the 2009 one. Nero was basically acting like Khan. And then they had Khan, and then the third one, the villain was some other captain guy that wanted revenge. Like, stop with the revenge captains. We don't need that. Yeah. Now, I also I thought it would be I built the bridge so it was a little truer to form for a bridge, a little flatter in detail, so that it could look, and looks definitely looks early 25th century, doesn't it? It definitely has that vibe. Early 21st century, and therefore, yeah, it's set in that timeline. It doesn't have to be Crass on the Chimera A. It doesn't have to be the Chimera A. It could be. But it doesn't have to be. Yeah, they could have gone on to do different things. Maybe Crass decided not to follow that timeline in the future thing and do something else. Maybe she'd do something else, and they had to be with them. Yeah. Sort of like at the end of All Good Things, does Picard really in the distant future marry Dr. Crusher? And apparently he didn't. He didn't marry her. They had a kid who was the wrong age, but to be that actor, so they aged him up too much as the actor, because the actor was older, much older than 20-something. He's 30-something. And the only way, in that story that actor would work out is if he was actually born in 2366. Well, Dr. Crusher was away at Starfleet Medical, and she just never brought it up for the rest of the next generation. He's actually from earlier on. Yeah, that makes more sense. But in the Memory Alpha, they say no, he must have been born in 2381, even though he'd be only about 20 years old. He certainly didn't look it. He was not a young-looking 30. It definitely looked closer to 40 than closer to 25. Now, when I was that young, when I was in my 30s, I looked like I was in my 20s. But not everybody can get away with that. I'm in my 50s now, but I don't look like I'm in my 50s. They're like, oh, you couldn't have been there when, you must have been a really little kid when Next Generation was on the air. I was about the same age as Will Wheaton, so. Turns out that he is actually a wee bit. Is he older? He's a wee bit older, yeah. But only a wee bit. Turns out I'm the same age as the Beckett Mariner character. Would have been a teenager during the Borg invasion. Wouldn't have been helping out on the Enterprise D with that. So, yeah, she couldn't have been in there. The Beckett Mariner character from Lower Decks. And Lower Decks is supposed to be set in 2380 something. So it's set in the past. It's now 20 years later. Yeah, so there's any number of things you can do with the storyline. They've never been to Alpha Centauri. That's a place you can go to. We kind of went there though, in the Cillian Realm story. Flodi, so the planet in orbit of Alpha Centauri A. Not Proxima. Proxima is a red dwarf, but Alpha Centauri A, which is a sun-like star, B is a slightly cooler K-type star. So G-type star and K-type star, and they're separated by a distance of 80 AU, which crashes down to 30 AU. So it goes from Neptune to Saturn, basically in orbit. So so they could easily have an Earth-like planet in orbit of either star. You could have one with an orbit that's slightly longer than that of the Earth, around the A-type star, and slightly shorter than that of the Earth, closer to Venus orbit, around the other B-type star. Both could exist and be habitable, unlike a lot of other stars they mentioned in Star Trek, and stars they mentioned in other shows as well. In Blade Runner, you have starfleets burning on the shoulders of Orion. Well, in 2019, 2020 or so, when it dimmed, that was the starfleets on the shoulders of Orion getting fried. Now, so that happened. They didn't know that was good. But those weren't starfleets that were allegedly particles of dust that obscured the star. That was the shoulder of Orion. But it's a red giant. It's covering a great distance. Rigel's a blue giant, I believe. Binary. But Rigel Centaurus is just Alpha Centauri. It's a different star. And that has it's closest. You have many others that mentioned. They mentioned Deneb a couple times. There's at least 2 or 3 Denebs. There's a blue Deneb, but there's a Deneb Katos, which is a little more white. And then they're both giants, so it's not like you would have. Altair is also a giant. They mentioned Altair. But 40 Eridani, better known as Vulcan, is a K-type star with a K-type star in orbit and a brown dwarf, a red dwarf. 3 stars, and they're in a closer orbit. They have the 3-body shape going on. So that's probably where the 3-body star system is in. 3-body problem. But even that doesn't make sense, because then you wouldn't have a planet in orbit. A Venus-type orbit that close to the other star. The AUs are too close. Vulcan would definitely be very hot. There you go. Yeah, but yeah, so you have a lot of the Star Trek stars you can visit. We've been to a lot of the other ones. The last movie, last story was a Legacy. We've been to the planet we went to the planet Metalis in that one. And on the planet Metalis, we discovered from Picard, and we discovered that the descendants of Josh Brown and his crew, a distant relation from the Pinedale days, had settled on the planets on a weird Q-like castle, and they were hanging out there because we'd left them. We didn't know they were there, so yeah, So they were from the Miriam planet as well, and they took the Miriam youths from Miriam's planet, from Miri, out into space. Miriam or Miri's planet, and then we have yeah. And no, my sister's not included. Martha is not included in the story, so don't worry about it. That would be weird. And no, I'm not going to include my mother as a Starfleet admiral or anything. Although there were back in the day, all the Trekkie relatives is like, what would they be? I can say that because it's kind of just making up stuff anyway. I drew like a picture thing saying like, well, Grandma Knapp, because she was almost 100 in 1996 when she passed away. She would be from the era of Enterprise with Captain Archer. So she would have the Captain Archer Enterprise outfit on. Dad was a World War II veteran who passed away in 2009. He'd be in his 90s now. He'd be in his late 90s now if he was still living. He'd be older than Kirk. And he would be in a Kirk era outfits, Pike Kirk / Kirk era. And would know all about that and have like a Kirk era uniform. Mom would also have a Kirk era uniform. She was passed away at 88. She would have a Kirk era uniform. Dad would have been, since he was a phone engineer, telecommunications thing, be engineering on the ship. and communications a little bit, like Uhura kind of, but engineering, on the ship. And he totally would have played that at a convention if he'd thought of that. Aunt Martha would have been similar, but more of a administrative person on the ship. Yeah, Grandma Knapp would have been, something else. Martha would have been the ship's counselor, I guess, but she wasn't. But on Next Generation, she would have been in the Next Generation period. But Grandma Knapp lived long enough to see the Next Generation, so she knew about the Next Generation, although its whole run, and she watched some of it. So she especially liked the space anti-mame character, that of course looks Lana Troy from Deanna Troy's mom. She liked that character. Aunt Martha liked Quark, of course, in the casino in the Deep Space Nine. Aunt Martha, who Dad's sister. And she would have been some sort of a officer person / ambassador on the Deep Space Nine show, and there was a Brown with an E, similar to my original last name, on the classic Trek, named Elizabeth Brown. She's a distant cousin, so there you go. She died many years ago, but it's a distant relation. So it was nepotism. There was a little bit of that. She was the lady who kissed Captain Kirk on the planet where everybody got the spores. And no, Kirk kissed Spock. That's right, Spock. She was like hot for Spock. She's like, well, why not? I'm gonna kiss Spock. Hot for Spock. But then there was a distant relation, very, very distant relation. Never really talked to her or anything, so don't ask. But yeah, she was the girl that kissed Spock. So then you have Mom would have been if she was, but they're not going to do that in this story, so don't worry about it. Don't anybody worry about it. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do the nepotism thing. She would have been a nurse on the Enterprise. Yeah. Head nurse in the Enterprise. Yeah, so it was like Nurse Chapel, but yeah, different. And also, she would have liked Kirk as well. But yes, yeah, and other space fan news and whatnot. I just recently talked to and reestablished contact with Kirk God himself, Brian Story, from the 2006, the first footage we ever shot of Starship Chimera, our fan film, because our fan film was up against his brother's fan film, his brother-in-law's fan film, Excalibur, Star Trek Excalibur. And it was a race, and we won. But no. So yeah, we had so there was this other fan film going on, and it was going to be in Nevada, near Las Vegas, and they're going to do this other fan film down there, and it ended up not working out. Partly because the people that stored his stuff were dicks, and while he wasn't there, they trashed the set. Apparently, back in the day, which was announced on the channel too, that they trashed messed up the set. Fortunately, with my fan films, my stuff just that was recently trashed, but the older stuff, in coincidence, many years later after it was done, the irony was that Chimera took 12 years to finally get done, just like our Starcrackers fan film did. Principal photography started installed between 2011 and 2018, and finally parts of it were reshot and had to be reshot again, like our Transformers fan film. And so that's what we did, and it was all during the time of the Star Trek Experience went under, and they tore down all the sets of that, had them in Vegas in 2008. They were throwing them away near the building, and we couldn't get Brian Story or the brother to get down there to get some of the sets out of the dumpster. That didn't happen. But yeah, we couldn't do that. Because I would have said, hey, if I'd known they were down there, I would have gone down there. I would have figured out a way. My friend and I would have gone down there. And then when Mr. Story was moving, he had some Star Wars paraphernalia and stuff that ended up getting tossed. Some Star Trek, Star Wars molds, 3PO molds, and only after he tossed them and said, "Oh, the 3PO mold," did Mark's Cards or John say, "I would have bought those off of your friend. I would have taken those." But oh well, they're gone now. I would have paid money for those. Oh well. Anyway, yeah, and then he thought, well, where would I put those? Yeah, it wouldn't fit me. There are molds for him. Yeah, so what else? Yeah, that didn't work. So, his brother ended up not doing fan film. Yeah, Mr. Joe Kreisman, the costume guy, probably heard of the name, ended up doing a pilot. Sort of a not really a pilot, but a sort of like what Axanar did. They did like a little 8-minute movie, put it up. And now there's other Axanar movies out there, and I don't even think they finished it. I think they just kept recycling over there at Axanar. They kept recycling the same stuff over and over again. If they did anything after all the actors quit, I don't think that they. I don't think there's a new movie. They're just making stuff up, reposting. Oh, look, this is brand new, and it's like 10 years old. Yeah. Unless they use some of the sets of the Mignogna sets. Mignogna being a relation or brother, I think a brother of Jason Mignogna from Pine Hill. We went to Pine Hill, which is interesting. But yeah, it would be cool to meet him too. But yeah, so we have so there's all these weird like indirect connections, and I'm not really on Facebook and Twitter, so not really. So I wouldn't know. But yeah, so the Kreisman thing fell apart, but and for a while there was a hiatus on the Chimera movie, like between like 2014 and 2016 or 17 or something. They just weren't doing anything, and most of the files were lost when the 2015 computer died. The computer from 2015. Fortunately, I had copied a version of the raw film that we'd filmed so far on a disc, and had left it in my mother's stuff in 2015 somewhere, and near her computer, and the disc had the raw film footage on it. I said, well, we didn't lose the footage from the first two parts of the story. It's right here on this disc. All we got to do is convert it. So awesome. So what you do is just convert it. Just put it back on there. Yeah, and so we did that with the laptop, and so we had this is a Chimera movie, and so we finished it in around 2018, 2019. Released it in September 2019 for the 53rd anniversary, I think it was, of Star Trek, and yeah, it finally came out after starting production in 2006. So yeah, so yeah, then there was a jump of 5 years between 2006 and 2011 when they actually started filming it, and then reshooting stuff later on. That was the Chimera thing, and the Chimera thing came out after Kreisman's little 8-minute video, but ours it's finished. There's the 3 50-minute episodes, 50-minute episodes, similar in tone, in brings to the Spectre saga, the Resurrection saga, that Star Trek Spectre guy. Similar trilogy going on, but it was meant to be a mini-series set in the Next Generation universe. And it was not meant to have a sequel. It was meant to be sort of a pilot. And on its own, not meant to have a sequel. And then during the pandemic years, we decided, we're indoors all the time. Why don't we just do Starship? Why don't we do not only Transformer fan films, let's do Star Trek ones. Let's do them indoors, because nothing else to do. So, yeah, we did them. Came up with a storyline parodying Strange New Worlds, calling it Strange Worlds, which was then borrowed by the Disney people for some reason. They wanted it. So there's a Strange Worlds movie that has nothing to do with us. But yes, but it's similar in tone again. But yeah, and so you have a Strange New Worlds spoof Chimera first season around 2020, 2019, 2020, somewhere around 2020, 2021. You have the Fallen Ones done about 6 months later after we did some Transformers. We were out there doing Transformers parodies, like the full all Transformers Mush saga that we had, and the Corrosion and Transitions and Redemption and all that. And then we went on to do some Star Trek. We would alternate between, like, every 6 months we'd do a Star Trek and then do Transformers, Star Trek and do Transformers. And we're still doing that to this day. 2024. In December of 2023, we had a Robotech thing. Late November, then they did this weird homage Star Trek thing, which does not canon with anything, so it's on another channel. And then did Transformers again, and did that. But yeah, the Fallen Ones was the second season, and it was done based on one of our pre-existing Salient books, which was based on the Jason Colavito blogs, but only the comments at the end of the blogs. And there were lots of them, so it was a lot. We had also covered in the books, we covered the Bullshido files as well, and did those as the martial sportist stories, off and on in the background of the story. We didn't do a full-on Bullshido technically at all in the live action stuff. The closest thing to that would have been season 3, which was right after the Robotech stuff, and that one was before the Robotech. It was Destinations. It was afterward. We did Robotech, and then did Destinations just recently, and Destinations was Rich Carson with him as consultant, and so we did one of the episodes, kind of 3 of the episodes, centered on the martial sportist, the Jung Sung story, and the backlash of that, and the characters and stuff. The third of those 2 stories was basically one was a 2-parter, stuck together. It was 90 minutes, and the other one was a one-shot mirror universe one where they win. We get to see what happens if they win. It's a mirror universe, so it doesn't matter. What you can do, you can get away with that. And then I went on to do a Robotech thing, Robotech Sentinels thing. After that. After, so the Sentinels thing, then Destinations, I think that's how it went. And then after Destinations, then we did Legacy, episode 1, just recently, a couple months ago. And then we did Transformers Legacy, episodes 1, 2, and 3, the 90-minute movie, the 3 of those, before we get on to more of Legacy. And here we are, a lot of fan films, a lot of prolific fan films, and we needed marked cards, kind of ordered up a bridge, and we built a bridge. Yeah, I built a bridge. And now we got to figure out what to shoot on it. Well, all the other stuff's going on. And that's okay, because there isn't a whole lot going on here, so I can do whatever I want. Come up with something. So, a lot of Star Trek fan films, when they try to do a fan film, they weight it down with the thought of nostalgia and member berries and things like that. As the Steve Shives shows it said, if you're going to write a fan film, you don't want to do that so much. You want to kind of write a fun story that already works. Jesse Gender, another character on Star Trek, kind of reiterated that. That's what you want to do. Kind of said the same thing. You want to do that. Shives was going on about like the ableist bad guys and stuff like that, and the people who think people with learning disabilities and difficulties, should be a certain way. Politics. But he was saying that was a bad thing, that they were being mean to them. So I think we should kind of delve into that a little bit. Maybe we'll have the commander of a ship be disabled. Just to stick it to the people who are mean to them, having them be a butt-kicking captain. Kicks butt. Yes. But yes. So that'd be kind of funny. For him to be butt-kicking, or him or her. I haven't decided. It doesn't have to be on the Chimera A. It could be some other ship. It looks different enough that it's basically says generic large Star Trek ship. in generic, large, maybe small size package ship. Yeah, it doesn't say this has to be that. Or if it was that, then it's fine. Then it's like, okay, this is supposed to be the Enterprise G, or this is supposed to be this other ship. All right, so that's cool. That also could be the case. Yeah, it doesn't matter when you're using. Let's use existing models, nothing new. Possibly some existing actual footage that we have of our own stuff. As minimalistic as possible, because you don't have any money at all to make it even look interesting. In fact, Queen Bee Studios, that allegedly produced Legacy, the movie, and then the 3 Transformers movies, is no longer a thing. So I have to go back to the other one. Fortunately, Mark's cards as well. Just KTS, On Location Cats. Just you have that. Pirated Productions. It doesn't matter. You're making it up anyway. So yeah, yeah, we have the characters already painted to match the other aesthetic. You don't need to go to the future in 3190 and rescue the crew of the Discovery. Although they should, really. The temporal mechanics of them being in the future for 3 years is screwing up the timeline, and they need to come back from, yeah. I haven't yet seen in Discovery, there's only been 2 episodes so far, a Kal Kat direct episode, although the blonde lady is definitely a Cillian descendant of the Elysians. And the bad guy, commander guy, is definitely one of the giants from the other stories. So it's definitely a homage to our stuff, again, but now a little more subtle. They're not blatantly naming people Cal, for instance, or SoCal either. This time, they named a guy Cal, and of course, and they've apparently been watching my blogs and comment channels. They don't realize that there aren't very many people. I don't have many subscribers. Like and subscribe, yeah. But the videos, there are lots of videos, so they see lots of videos. They figure he's a big YouTuber, and they watched it and they thought my comment earlier on in the early seasons with the beard and all that, or a couple of years ago, was like, that would be fun is to appear on Star Trek Lower Decks and have them shoot my character with a phaser. So in the pilot of Lower Decks season 4, he could. It's clearly a 2380s Kal Kat. He gets shot with a stunned by a phaser blast. Oh yes. They clearly were watching my stuff, and yeah, and I drew his picture up there on the wall. So. Yes, and now that Scott Boyd has left Star Trek Online, and we never actually got on Star Trek Online, does that mean we would go back? I'm not sure at this point. But no, we're not going to end up replacing him because there's no replacing him. Also, I don't do what he does. I don't do 3D animation backgrounds. I don't know how to do that at all. So I wouldn't be doing what he does. There was another guy talking about illustrated books at a men's retreat thing, and it was like, it sounds like the guy just doesn't really know what he wants to do. He's retired, and he's like, I'm gonna do illustrated books and novels and things. Actually, illustrated books are really hard. Yeah, the way I get away with stuff like that is it's action figures. And the action figures can do a go motion thing a little bit. Yeah, so you don't. It's not an illustrated book. It's a video where a figure's moving around a little bit on screen, and you're talking over the figure. So you can film that quickly, get it done. An action transformer scene, or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a Chimera update, the Chimera channel, and yeah, so. My mother, who was a Star Trek fan, passed away on April 1st. Because that would be funny. Very cute of her. She was not so much into Next Generation, so much. More Voyager. Yeah, more than Deep Space Nine. She's more into Voyager. Captain Janeway, of course. She's the captain. If she was in Next Generation period, she would also be a nurse. Yeah, separated by 78 years. Why did they do that? Yeah. But yes, she's a Next Generation character. She was never used in a Cillian story. There was only, well, there were others, other relatives in there. There was one episode where, in the early days of the show, where Aunt Martha hadn't passed yet, so Aunt Martha appeared in an episode as an old admiral in one of the Cillian stories, giving them their marching orders to the Chimera. Yeah, that's who that was. Admiral Mossberger, giving her orders to the ship. I was basically spoofing that Admiral Harv Bennett scene, Admiral Bob from Star Trek V. So it'd be kind of funny if Aunt Martha appeared and said that. She wrote the lines to be in the episode. So this is what I would say. Yeah. I'd say something about gambling and stuff, because I did that. Ew. Something about the poker face not working. Your poker face is terrible, Captain. You know exactly what you're going to say before you say it. But yes, oops. Yeah, so, yeah, that's, yeah, so here it is. Here it is, yeah, I haven't thought of anything new on it, but I will. Using the sets. So I think what I will do is I'll come up with what's going to happen on the bridge sets first, which is kind of a weird way to do it. Film that, and then see what happens from there. Maybe it's a bottle show. Maybe it's all on the ship. Maybe. But yeah, because the last one was a planet movie. I'm assuming it will be like the last one was a feature film movie thing with things moving around. That would be a feature film thing. So unlike the rumors saying Star Trek Legacy, and also Star Trek 4 is a thing, it's not. It's just our fan film. Yeah, our fan film series was greenlit. The studio, the Mark Shards and the studio said, the series is greenlit. Now that you did that pilot of yeah, now you're going to come up with episodes for Starship Legacy. Oh yeah. But yeah, and talked to Brian Story, and it was we didn't say much about the Star Trek thing, but we passed Star Trek parodies to each other, and Ghostbusters, talk about Ghostbusters, and the Afterlife and the Frozen Empire are canon according to Mr. Story, so they're fine, but not the 2016 one. So yeah, we have yeah, the Kirk God. And yes, the guy from Discovery who was playing the Guardian of Forever was clearly a nod to Brian's Story. Not Harlan Ellison, because that wouldn't make sense. No, it was Brian's Story. It was supposed to be. That's who it was. Who had visited the set of Next Generation. They just didn't remember who it was exactly, but it was him. Absolutely. And the actor playing Brian's Story in the story was a different guy, but it was clearly him. I'm just doing Brian's Story from back in the day. Yeah, we've been on the set of Next Generation. Whereas I played a parody version of Nick Locarno. So there you go. And then only for yeah, lower decks to then say, oh, we killed Nick Locarno. Ha ha ha. It's like, yeah, funny, Mr. McMahon. No, you didn't. You killed a version of him. He cloned himself. So, yeah. Version of it. It was his Section 31 version of him who wanted to steal the device. So it isn't him, it's a clone. Because otherwise he and Dax and them couldn't get together. And then he's all like, Cito Jackson really died, it really happened. Not in the Cillian timeline. In the Cillian timeline, she also was cloned and put out there in space as herself. Because they found the remains on the planet. So it's both either or. Yeah, so she died, but they resurrected her, basically. And then decided, well, we're not going to use this resurrected version of her anyway. So. Also, she kind of looked a little like Rumbly from the other episode. So Rumbly got with the Kal Kat guy. And it's... Ooh. Her action figures were kissing. As the real Rumbly said. Yeah, but it's a good thing they only did that, because that would have been like, that would have been a little cringe, creepy, weird. It's a good thing that's all they did. They were just like Q or something. And also the Sandra Talisman one where he just gives her a pastor hug, basically. That was okay with her too. She was on. That's fine. That's as long as nothing happened there. That's fine. It was yeah. Well, they cock blocked them because the parents were standing there. Yeah, they stopped it. No, so. But they didn't in the new movie. They didn't stop Crass and Mahoney from being all lovey-dovey to each other. I don't know where that's going, if at all. This universe could be changed at some point. I mean, it doesn't have to be retconned out like the other ones. Ron Sorry. So it would be fun. So we'll see. Come up with something. Yeah. Like those other Chimera movies, I just go and produce them. I just film them. Yeah, also I figured out other techniques for curing the cardboard. Hopefully not causing them to get moldy. Yeah. But yes, hopefully not. That'd be gross. And the bridge is a one-use bridge. Hopefully it doesn't do that. So you have Alpha Centauri is a little too close. You probably want to do a story that's more out there in the galaxy, new uncharted area of space kind of thing. Spoofy sort of thing. You can't have member berries as long as they make sense. Yeah, trouble with about half of the Star Trek feature films was they kept trying to redo the Wrath of Khan in some form by having there be a central villain that they had to fight, and then go and fight the villain, and because there has to be a villain, there has to be a Joker for the Batman to fight, and it's like you don't need to do that. Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, they did time travel to the 1980s. Because, yeah, the whale probe was accidentally destroying the oceans in the future. But it wasn't intentionally. It was looking for something. It was looking for the whale. They go back and get the whale, bring it to the future, and have the whale tell it what to do with itself. It flies off. Star Trek The Motion Picture. This alien probe was confused. It came to Earth. It was kind of silly. It kind of, yeah. It wanted to destroy everything because it couldn't find the humans. So it was kind of a villain, but then they convinced it not to by setting it old NASA codes, which is silly. But yes, Star Trek V was Cybok the Zealot on the planet. And once they go to find Shakari, they're basically Vulcan heaven. That wasn't really a Khan villain. Yeah. First Contact was a Khan villain, but it was a Borg queen. Yeah, so yeah, you kind of have that. Star Trek 3 didn't really have a villain. It had Kruge, who killed David, the character, but it really didn't have a central villain. He wasn't really a threat. He was beaten really easily, pushed off a cliff. Yeah, so he was beaten easily. Yeah, so the Nemesis was a Khan-like guy. Star Trek 09 was a Khan-like guy. Star Trek, all the other ones were a Khan-like guy. Yeah, they need to stop doing that. Insurrection had a villain, but he wasn't out for revenge. It was a different kind of villain. A traitorous admiral and a traitorous alien, which is a little different. We're trying to displace people, do colonialism thing. Star Trek is best when it does metaphors for our time, reflected in whatever that time is. Reflected in not directly but indirectly through the actions of the crew, usually an alien group like the classic the classic heroes and villains of the classic show, like the Romulans being sort of this espionage sort of Cold War bad guy sneaky dudes, the Klingons being basically the Red Chinese and the Russians, and the Romulans being sort of pseudo-Russian bad guy Well, yeah, they were kind of Russians too. They were kind of like Cold War, yeah, European guys, basically. But Vulcans, yeah. But they both kind of switched their personalities. The Cardassians were space Nazis. The Bajorans were Jews and Palestinians mixed in. Even though they probably wouldn't get along very well. But oh yeah, the different groups. The Andorians were kind of Nordic people, I guess. The Tellarites were like angry, aggressive, like barbarian things. The Ferengi were an archetype of the American capitalist. They were making fun of themselves, which I thought was funny. The alien races would reflect that. Kirk would, in the classic Trek, Kirk would go to planets where the Klingons were selling guns, like the Vietnamese War, the Vietnam War, because that was going on then. Or Next Generation, the war that was going on then was the Cold War. So there'd be some Cold War episodes dealing with that on occasion. But then the Enterprise was during the post 9/11 period, so there was aliens, euphemistically called the Suliban. There were time travel alien Taliban people. So they would be Afghanis, I guess. The Afghani time travelers. That's really weird. Okay, that's really strange. The Breen. I don't know what the Breen were supposed to be. The Borg were supposed to be like hyper oligarch gone amok thing, where they had augmented themselves to the point that they were like cyberpunk zombies, basically. The Borg. That's what the Borg were. So yeah, there were all these different things that the different alien races, also discussed in the Ryan story discussion. But yeah, a little bit. So there's it's best to not have politics directly in your Star Trek because, like, directly mentioned, but it's indirectly mentioned through aliens in the future. 300 years from now, they mention stuff. That's why Picard season 2 didn't work so well when they went to 2024, to April 2024. They're on the planet now in Los Angeles right now with the Borg ship and all that. That's where they are. We got to find Rios and bring him back because he can't stay back there. In our time period right now, he's got to go back. So and the Picard show is the timeline is all screwed up. Yeah. It should be 2402 now, not 2402 back then. But yeah, so yeah, because 2018 would have been 2396 roughly. Well, let's see, 2394 would line up with, because 2364 lined up with Next Generation Season 1 in 1987. 2394 would line up with 1990, 30 years later, 97. No, 1990, no, wait a minute, 2016. So 2394 should be 2017. That's so when Picard show was going to start, when Discovery started, it should be 2394 at that point. A little bit before what it actually was. That would make because it's 2017. So 2017. So now that it's 7 years later, it would be 2401. Yeah, so a little bit into the lines up. So yeah, they need to hire us over at Paramount. They need to hire us. Weird Trek fan guys. They need to hire us. They need to say, all right, can we fix it? We can fix it. Drop all the Abrams stuff. Just stop doing it. Just cancel Discovery now. Just no. Cancel them, fire them. They're gone. We will fix it. No more prequels. No more stupid like Section 31. Let's do a Section 31 movie. I'll probably watch it and review it, of course, but or an Academy movie set in that 3190s in which no one cares. No, you set your Starfleet Academy movie in 2401, or you set it 78 years earlier in the time of Picard and crew, at the time of Kirk and crew, a little after Kirk and crew. You set it in 2324. You set it in 2324. You set it 78 years before that other story. That's when you set it, and you have it be in a period of lost years during the time of the Enterprise B, the Enterprise B, and you reference that, and you do what Brian Fuller was trying to do with Discovery. You bring Brian Fuller on board, and you say, "All right, here's what I'm going to fix it. Do a TV movie in a week set in the lost years." That'd be cool. Yeah. Unlike Robert Burnett going on about, there's a scene that really bothered him where the two ships use it. Yeah, it was silly. The two ships stopped an avalanche with a starship, with the shields. Yeah, that scene was silly, but Discovery has always been in the Silly Trek universe. The whole thing is set in the Silly Trek universe. Anyway, it's not really our universe. It's Trek universe. It's a Silly Trek universe. It has to be. They have programmable matter and time ships and stuff. It's Silly Trek. It's not Star Trek. It's Silly Trek. It's Starship Locations. But we're not going to go there this season. I don't think at all for any reason, unless there's we don't need to pay homage to Discovery. It's the weakest one. Why would we pay homage to that? But yeah, only because they're doing Planet of the Fallen ones this season. Yeah, they're going on a quest to find the thing, and they got the alien lady and everything. Actually, the Star Trek Picard, Terry Matalas, Picard season 1, season 3, did the Vatic, the evil bad guy, was clearly Libby Planet, and from Pine Hill. It's clearly who that was supposed to be. I mean, it was a shapeshifter that took the form of her, but it was her. It was absolutely her. She would have totally been an evil scientist, because she would be. She'd be an evil scientist. She's clearly the reflection of the character from the Chimera story as well, the alternate universe of Sela, who showed up as well. Probably originally, my guess is, and it's probably not too far off, is that they intended for that role to be Denise Crosby and Sela, but she refused. I suspect that's what that was going to be. That would have made a hell of a lot more sense if that was Sela, who had been abducted by a shapeshifter, and the shapeshifter turned her into like an alternate version of her. It was supposed to be Sela. It was supposed to be, but Denise Crosby probably said, "I don't want to do that. No, I'll go on Kal Kat's one and be a mirror universe version of me. That's more fun." Well, we'll do that. And you can't have a Section 31 series because you have the problem of Section 31 being not clandestine anymore if you do that. You're basically saying, oh, there they are over there. They have little black badges and little black uniforms and walk around, and they're the spies. Okay, if you know who the spy is, you kind of don't have a spy agency anymore because there's the spy over there sitting in 10 forward. That I can agree with Burnett's story. It's like, that's not a spy. Also, that was kind of what Steve Shives was also saying, and his friend Jason. They were like on their blog site. They were like, "Yeah, how do you have a spy that's got his name written on his name tag and stuff?" That'd be stupid. There's a spy over there. No. Yes, the thrill-seeking bad guys in Discovery. Well, we'll see. We'll see where Kal Kat. He's going to show up. We're just going to say when he shows up. And And yes, I'm sure they will reference Shatner at some point as well. The Phoenix thing. They'll definitely reference, well, yeah, at some point, Shatner will be referenced. It's going to happen. Kirk Kat thing. They're going to do that. Oh, and just to screw with everybody, Brian Story should appear as the character of the other character in costume, facing Shatner going, I'm Kirk Kat. No, I'm Kirk Kat. No, I'm Kirk Kat. No, I'm. And finally, after like a half a minute, Berman will go, shut up. I don't care which one of you is Kirk Kat. Spock. Where is Spock? I'm Shatner. I'm Shatner. No. Bill Shatner. No, I'm not Shatner. Not Nick Locarno either. Not Robbie McNeil. Some fans at a Star Trek Experience thought it was Robbie McNeil, which was funny. But nope, not Robbie McNeil. Nope, never actually met him at a convention. I saw him at a convention, but never met him. And he was losing his hair too. Now he's got a toupee. I can't afford one of those. A toupee. But yeah, Oh, yeah, they've cast me as Picard's kid. That would have been funny. I've been like way too old to be Dr. Crusher's kid. But that would have been weird. No. Yeah. How do we explain that, Beverly? And genetic cloning or something. Your son is actually older than you. How does that even work? Doesn't really. I'm sure the Silly Track story will be fun and hilarious. Oh, yes. It has to be fun and hilarious. So, yeah, I'm just shooting the shit about Star Trek and continuing voyages of Legacy. Because it's been greenlit, and now we have to come up with an actual story. Besides, Kirk and crew meet on the planet Metalis. That'll be fun. The story was... Yeah, it was fun. It was great. I like all of my stuff that I did. But that one was kind of on the fly, which you can kind of tell. Yeah. It was fun to see some of the old crew again. That was great. But they've clearly moved on at this point. So, 2406 in their timeline. They've moved on, and they're doing other things. In their timeline. It's a little later. But yeah, it's not going to be Q. He's not going to show up and go like, hey, you really weren't in the future. Stonk. Legacy section. I think since the ships look a little bit like a Section 31 thing, is this going to be a Section 31 spoof? That'd be kind of fun. But it's probably more like a weird temporal story, I think. Kind of fun. This is the beginning of that. Temporal Cold War. The future guy is really Will Wheaton, of course. That would be a lot of that would be too much member berries. Do what you want. but yeah. Boldly go where no one has gone before. But yes, creative consultant Brian Story's on board. Yes. But yeah, so we have Mark's cards and Brian Story on board. He probably won't do any more lines, but he's on board. So yeah. Yeah. The Kirk God. I'm the great bird of the galaxy. Q, you've done poorly. I will send you and your ship's crews back. It is finished. You've done well and passed my test. Q, you've done poorly. Shame on you. A lot of fun. Yes, because it's a fan film. So you can do whatever you want with a fan film. If people are complaining about your fan film that it's not realistic, they're silly. If not, we're stupid. It's like it's not supposed to be. Do what you love, but yeah, but try to if you have the talent and the means to do it, right, and have acting in it, whatever. I tend to do the voice work over the figures because it's just easier that way. Yeah, I can certainly play Star Trek characters. I've done that on some of the Halloween stories and whatever. Yeah, and yeah, I even had my Lower Decks character, the captain of the San Jose, show up. And they definitely watched that and said, yeah, we are going to shoot this guy with a phaser next season. Well, wait till you see season 5 of Lower Decks. Yeah. And of course, yes, Trek Yards helped to resurrect Prodigy, which will be airing on Netflix coming up eventually. Well, we'll see. They finished it. They just didn't put it out yet. They finished this season. So we'll see what they do with Prodigy. Prodigy is not dead. As far as I know. Not dead. Also, that rumor about Star Trek 4 is just a rumor. Star Trek 4/13. Yeah, it's a rumor. They've got a new writer that came out of nowhere, and they don't know what they're doing. They need to hire us. They need to just throw that script away. They need to hire us. This is what you're going to do. These are the things you're not going to do. No new con villain at all in the story. No villain. No villain. Go to a planet, maybe have some adventures where the villain is necessarily an idea, a concept. They're trading dilithium weapons or something. There's your concept. The villain is not a con. The villain is more of a con man, perhaps. Something that illustrates now, which would be a lot of con men and scammers. Maybe they go to a planet of con men and scammers. Kind of like Ferengi. And they have to stop that. And they'd have to recast Nog. But because he has to be heroic enough to be later a captain, but they have to recast him. And he can show up, and he can be all... They'd also have to recast Anton Yelchin, too. But there's a guy out there that could play Anton Yelchin's character. There's a guy. He's called Anton Popov. He's this What the Math guy from YouTuber. He looks like him, and he can play him really well. So you go look that guy up. Anton Popov. Yeah, it would work. It would absolutely work. You could use him for Chekhov. Yeah. But I don't think the Abrams timeline happens anymore. I think it's destroyed. Because the Kirk era of that timeline becoming a captain in one movie as a lieutenant or barely an ensign, he doesn't know what he's doing. And his 3-year mission doesn't make sense. So when V'ger shows up, and V'ger will show up in his equivalent timeline 5 years later, 8 years later in 2371, which would be in their timeline now, V'ger would just obliterate the Earth and kill everyone because there's no way that Chris Pine Kirk could stop him. He just couldn't. Oh, no. Oh, no. Also, you got to get the Discovery people back. Can't just leave them there. They got to go back to 2250 something. Return them to their timeline. And they know too much about the future, so they'd have to get their minds erased or something. But no, not doing that in this episode. It'd be funny if I joked about it, though. It was like, oh yes, Michael Burnham, you're back. You transported back to the timeline. Yeah. Actually, what you could do is age up the action figure, so she's like 100 years old, because it's 100 years later, because she'd be 150. Have her show up and have her be. Yeah, they pulled me out of the time warp from the distant future. Yeah, I'm not a space Marvel god anymore. Yeah, we're looking for this renegade commander from. No, not going to do that. Of course, William Shatner have to appear. Shatner. Kirk. Maybe he appears next to Chris Pine Kirk. He's like, Chris Pine Kirk, V'ger's going to destroy you completely in 2371. You're going to be destroyed. And then, what will you have? Nothing. Earth will be obliterated. Small. Then what do we have? Captain Kirk, 93 years old and sharp as a tack. Even though on Boston Legal I played a guy with Alzheimer's. Clearly don't have that at all. Really, quite sharp. Denny Crane. Denny Crane. Preserver. Yeah, the aliens and that other stories with preservers too. Sort of. Engineer, founder, alien thing. Well, humanoid races are all been from that. The chase. Kal Kat. We see in season 5. I mean, would they really hire Shannon Phil for one episode of that pilot thing and not plan on doing something with that character in some way? And have a Genesis planet there ready to regenerate her somehow. They'll figure out a way. And Shannon will be like, yay, I get to come back. But not on Silly Track, but we've paid homage to her character of Cedo Jaxa quite a bit. And other ones as well. Yeah. yeah, also Martha Hackett in there. No relation. Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey is another oddity. The character of Mahoney is a Carey action figure. And he's also clearly Boimler. And both Carey and Boimler are names from my stories, from Chimera and Starcrackers and all that. And from Distant Destinies. Boimler is from the Space-Time Eye, or the short stories of the Bolmer from the planet. And the other one is from the other one. Carey's from Starcrackers. I played him. Yeah, so... Yeah, and I wasn't thinking Jim Carrey. I was thinking Carrey, it spelled the other way. Carrey, like, this is before Voyager. The show was in production. Starcrackers, the first 40 minutes of that, with Carrey in them, they were done in 1992 in February. So, whereas the finished movie was done in 2005, many years later, with different footage. And then 2011 it was completed and put up online in 2014. But technically, Carrey predates Voyager. It was 1992. Predates Deep Space Nine. So they knew about him. They were Carrey. And Carrey had Carrey on Voyager had the audacity of being socked in the face by B'Elanna Torres. She hit him in the face. She's mad at him one day. But yes, yeah. Whereas the Carrey and Starcrackers would probably have been able to block a punch from B'Elanna Torres, because he was a martial artist and he had a martial arts shirt and all that. So he would have been able to block it. She would have gone swung and he would have went, I blocked. Thanks anyway. Oi! But I try to do the accent and it always goes all over the place. And I kind of sound like Theo Adams instead. From the Star Wars Transformers thing. It went all over the place there too, because I really don't. And then it's Cockney, and then it becomes British and sounds more like Picard for some reason. So you be very careful with that one. Yes. Or then it sounds like an Indian person on the phone. And then it sounds like a Latin lover. And a Frenchman, and then it just goes everywhere. It's confusing. Yeah. We will probably visit some sort of classic generation character planet. So, anyway. Yeah.